Dumelang bana ba dikgoshi le dikgoshigadi. Ke ngwanyana la o rata ke modimo le mangelo ya kere. Welcome to the Kekeletso podcast,
a brand that stands for all things owning your power. In other words, we have conversations with individuals from different walks of life, understanding that how did you get to the point of owning your true power, and what did you do to get to that point of owning that power?
Dumelang bana ba dikgoshi le dikgoshigadi. Ke ngwanyana la o rata ke modimo le mangelo ya kere. Welcome to another episode of the Kekeletso podcast, a brand that stands for all things owning your power. On this podcast, we open up conversations with individuals from different walks of life to try and understand how did you come to the realization of your true power and what did you do to get to that point of owning that power. We believe that confidence is something that comes from within you, and we also believe that clothing and fashion statements are a big part of that process. I'm your host, Suhoran Lisedan, and joining me in studio today is a hair scientist, an actionist, and the first former president of Azapo.
Hi.
Kekeletso Khene.
Yes.
Did I say it right?
Khena.
Khena.
That's
Oh,
right.
it's with an A.
Yes.
What does it mean?
I have no idea. It's very interesting. We come from a lineage of 5 brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone who has my surname Khena is literally a direct relative of ours.
Yeah.
Apparently, we came from Lesotho. And as you know, we got locked in the borders because Africans were traveling in and out of the continent.
Yeah.
So we got locked in South Africa as South Africans. But I think we are from Lesotho originally.
So anyone by the surname is your direct
Definitely a relative of mine, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of you guys being from Lesotho originally, well, so you think, where have you been born and bred? So what was your upbringing like and where was that?
So I grew up in Soweto. I grew up in a township called Epiri. I was raised Epiri until I was in my late teens. And interestingly, it was after I got raped for the 3rd time.
What?
That's
Why are you just dropping that like it's nothing? Oh my God.
Well, I think we live in a violent society and we can't ignore the fact that our experiences shape who we are. So, so my upbringing is literally, I mean, if you want to talk about who Kekeletso is, it's poignant that I note and I talk about the violence that exists in townships and how that shapes our lives. But anyway, just going back to my childhood. So I grew up in Piri, and then my mom at some point had to buy a different house, a Protea. And this is because, you know, we naturalize violence as societies. Even when people are violent, we protect the violent men in our lives, making it impossible for victims to live in those spaces. And part of the move was, I suppose, from my mother's perspective, to try and protect me. So I moved to a Protea. I then left to go to Durban when I was in my late teens. So, yeah, and that's, I guess, the start of my life as an individual.
And what did you do when you got to Durban? How old were you when you moved to Durban?
Sure. So the story is that after the last time I got raped, I literally quit school. And I couldn't function within the schooling system. I quit school and I was at home for a while. And I think when I was 18, I decided to go and finish my matric. I then went to study in Durban. I finished my matric in Durban and I started working immediately after in Durban. So I think I lived in Durban for 3 years before coming back to Gauteng. And then I started working in the film industry right then. And from there, I was lucky enough, which is very interesting because I didn't have a degree, but by the time I was 21, I was a PR manager for Edcon. And I was doing fashion PR for Jet, Smiley's, ABC, Cuthbert's. I think they had 6 brands, including CNA at the time. And I was literally given that position by my boss who was leaving and she was going overseas. I was already reporting to the CEO at 21 without a degree. And yeah, that's basically how my life started. It's been magical. And just, I can't explain to you how a series of my life is literally just pure magic.
Listen, I'm like in a headspin right now because I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to play catch up. Okay, let's take it back to this sensitive topic that you really just touched on now, which is your rape, right? And I'm saying you touched on it and you're saying it with so much grace, sort of like you've worked your way out of that gutter of a situation. Tell me, because you're speaking about the third time you were being raped. Tell me from how that whole situation started.
So the first one, I think I was 14 years old. I was what you would consider a butch kid. So I was wearing baggy pants and a baggy top, and it was dusk. But I was with my friends. And this van, literally just came out of nowhere. And they took my two guy friends, threw them in the back of the van, and they took me. And the next thing I know, I was just getting a beating in the car. I'm like, what the hell is happening? And these guys were like, yeah, that's why it's because of girls like you. I'm thinking, girls like me?
What did I do?
Right. You know? So at the time, just by the way, I am gay. At the time, I didn't even realize that I was gay. I didn't even know that I was a lesbian, right? I just liked dressing in my baggy clothes and having my boyfriends, friends. So I didn't realize what was being said at the time. Cut forward to, I think I was 16 at the time, and I had a boyfriend. Because, of course, I didn't realize that I was gay, so I had a boyfriend. And he's like, yo, dude, you need to give it up. I'm like, no, I'm not giving nothing up. So we eventually broke up with this guy, and he was like, I owed him sex. But I didn't realize that it was a thing. Like, it was like he had an entitlement to my body, and I needed to have had sex with him. And so he had left a pager. So that's how old I am. You know, I'm from that generation, Eddie pager. He had left a pager, and I'd taken the pager to a friend, and then he came in a car to come and collect the pager. I'm like, okay, fine, let's go fetch the pager. I get into the car to go fetch the pager. We don't get to the pager. We drive to Zerbekom, to his family house, and that's where I got raped. The second time, again, Wangolota, this belongs to me. I'm like, oh, wow. Obviously, I didn't say anything to my mom. And then the third time was this guy who was my brother's friend and my best friend's brother. So, and we were like a family.
This is like a close circle.
It was a very close circle. And when I get invited to the party, and, my friend was going to be there as well. So we went. But then Nakoya Shapa is like, no, I'm going to take you home. Cool. I mean, why would I not think Uncle Chaff is not going to take me home?
Yeah.
But he didn't, and he raped me. And so that one went to court, but it created such a rift in the family and society because this guy was like the thing. And, women liked him because he was a stud, he had money, he was into stealing cars and stuff. So he was hot, he was currency. And people couldn't understand why I didn't want to date him. But he was Uncle Chuff for starters. I mean, outside of anything, he was just an older brother. So I'm not sure, what the expectation was. But that created such friction between my family and the community itself. And so this is when the community turns against the victim and you speak of secondary victimization. It was such a horrible process, even that whole court case. I can just remember the sort of nonsensical questions that I've had to deal with. But, I talk about how our lives sort of predetermine who we are going to be because those experiences, the court, the secondary victimization have literally been a part of the activism that has driven my life. Because now, as society, we know not to have secondary victimization in police stations. We also know, I coined in the first interview, I think it was in 2003, when we spoke about hate crimes. Today in South Africa, we talk about hate crimes against the LGBTIQ. The very first time the word corrective rape was ever used in this country was used in an interview that I had done with the Star. And that has gone to characterize this concept of women, particularly lesbians, Black lesbians who get raped, with men thinking that they are correcting us because uchaf naye, and I'm going to link the two to the first one. Uchaf naye, at the end of it, I'm like, but why are you doing this? He says, I'm trying to remind you what it's like to be a Black woman. So for me, it's like every time women do not present themselves in ways that men find comfortable, We get raped just so that we can be
corrected,
fixed. Right.
Yeah.
And so as a lesbian, there's just, I think the first time when they said, this is because of girls like you, it's now starting to make sense. Oh, so the girls like you was that they automatically assumed I was gay.
Because of how you presented yourself.
Right. I didn't even know I was a lesbian. I mean, my first partner only happened when I was 19. My first lady partner was when I was 19 years old. So the whole time I didn't know that I was gay, but they had already decided that I needed to be punished for whatever sexual choices that I was going to make in the future. I was a kid, man. I was 14 years old. But like I said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but it also directs your path because I am who I am because of my very experiences. You said, I speak about it with a gentleness. I do because it has been a journey. In my spiritual life, I've come to realize that we are born for certain things, and life will present to you challenges that are going to sort of shape your journey. I wouldn't change
what you have gone through.
No, because it has made me who
you are today. So how was the conversation like opening to your mom that she felt that you guys need to now move seaters? Because you said your mom moving to Durban was because she wanted to protect you as a child.
No. I moved to Durban.
You moved to Durban,
Mama moved from a Piri to a Protea.
Yes.
I think it was just as traumatizing for my family as it was for me. And it was just a necessary transition.
How was it like coming out to your mom? I want to know that moment when you approached your mom and you said, Mom, this is what I'm going through. Because this is the challenge in our society, that when a young girl who's being sexually assaulted by someone of a caliber of the men that you just described, because this is the biggest challenge that we have in our communities, that men are respected in public. And as soon as a victim tries to come out, they're like, it can never be that guy. So how was it like approaching your mom and being like, this is what I experienced?
Mom was very supportive, but remember, she was dealing it for the second time. Okay, she didn't know about the one in the middle. So she knows about me getting raped when I was 14, because obviously I called her the morning. She took me to the doctor. My mom was a nurse, so she took me to the doctor. She looked after me. So the second time it happened, she also understood. She didn't blame me for it. So she understood.
So you've had that support.
The first time, not really. Mom was not very excited about it. She actually blamed me for it the first time it happened because your umama repeated those words, which didn't make sense to me. This is what happens to girls like you. That for me was a very interesting statement. So these people were seeing something that
you didn't even see at the time.
Right. Yeah. So umama her reaction to the first time that I got raped was like, it's your fault this has happened to you. But the third time it happened, she was quite, okay. I must say it did leave like scars, but Mom and I have, literally walked through that and we've spoken about it. And that's another thing. We have these expectations of women to just know how to deal with these difficult situations. And it's not always easy. My mom was a single parent. And there you have all of these challenges. You have 4 children that you must feed, and you have a violent society where you are trying to do the best that you can to protect them. And this stuff happens. I can't imagine what she must have been going through, thinking that she was unable to protect her last born, There's this expectation that women must just know to, hold your child and support them through it. But how are you prepared as a mother to deal with the kind of violent society and the violence that your children are going to be experiencing? That in itself is problematic.
What have you done personally to overcome this, besides everything that society has put you through? But alone, what did you do to really overcome this and be in the space that you are in today, that you find yourself in? Yeah.
So it's been an interesting journey. Right at the beginning, one of the first things that I did was living in the township is violent. Poverty exposes you to violence. So right then and then, I knew I needed to make money. So that was my approach. Make money. Make sure you have enough money so you don't have to live in the township, because if you live in the township, you're going to get raped. So that's what happened in my mind. So I had a successful career. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, but literally outside of just, the kind of corporate positions I've had, I've worked for your Vodacoms, etc. I've just made sure that I had enough money. I had the biggest car. I was very intentional about driving a Jeep because it felt safe to be in a big car. Nobody would be able to box me in. So the kind of decisions and purchase decisions that I made at the time were about protecting myself and living in what I considered safe societies, etc. And then over time, I realized that that's not going to work. Overworking myself and driving the capitalist sort of consumerist culture was not going to be the way that gives me fulfillment. And I had to deal with the lack, the hurt, the fear, the feelings of not being good enough, because then you start buying things so that you
overcompensate.
Right. So you feel better about yourself. I look good. I drive a big car. So you don't then get to deal with how these experiences have made you feel. So then I had to go inwards and start dealing with who Ukeke was and who Ukeke is when she doesn't have R1 million in her account. And that was a very painful journey. And I've been through that. Like you go from being a millionaire to having absolutely nothing. Right? And being able to get up from that and take a job. I remember when I was in Cape Town, so the first million came from doing work with the 2010 FIFA World Cup. So I had the FIFA World Cup marketing project in the Eastern Cape. And I can't tell you what happened. New money is problematic. But we'll have that conversation. And again, it was that consumerist thing trying to feed the hurt. And at some point, I thought I would reestablish in Cape Town. It didn't quite work. And I remember having to call my mother and ask for imali electricity, nemali esinkwa. This is after having had, a couple of zeros. Right.
Yeah.
And at that point, you start looking at yourself and you start thinking, but who am I when I don't have money? Do I love myself? Am I still worthy? And that's when I found myself. I found Ukeke, and Ukeke is strong, resilient, and unbreakable, because when I had to take a job, I think I was earning 17,000 rand. Yeah, I had to take a job earning 17,000 rand, and that's what I used to earn when I was 21 at Edcon, right? So being, now I'm in my 30s, and I'm now earning what I used to earn when I was
20s, yeah.
And you look at that and you're like, this is who I am. But I found a level of contentment even within that, because I had to find myself, and I did. I located Ukeke and I found this, I used to say, a tennis effect, the ability to bounce back. And I did, because even there, I knew that I wasn't there to stay. It was just transition. And I transitioned because I then landed the Gauteng PR. I had a job with the Gauteng provincial government where I was doing PR for Umama Mgonyane's department. And I was able to then rebuild myself from that. So you're never down for too long if you know who you are. And the fact that if you have built it before, you can build it again. They can take it. And I learned that I'm indestructible. And the fact that I'm indestructible comes from the fact of the experiences that I've had and the fact that I didn't die.
You didn't die.
I tried to commit suicide, but I didn't die.
You tried to commit suicide?
Oh, yeah. Depression was my everyday thing. But you don't call it depression when you're black, ne?
What do you call it?
It's just a dark place, like stress, or I just want to kill myself. Depression becomes a thing that we talk about now, mental health. It's a conversation that we are having now.
Yeah.
Then, Bati, depressed, why
would you depressed?
Right. So it's taken that long for us to get to the point where we talk about mental issues and how our experiences or how growing up in these violent societies has such an impact on us.
Yes. You speak of the experiences that you have and the fact that we are sort of like predestined because we are predestined because of our experiences growing up. And because of your experiences, you are an actionist.
Right.
You do quite a lot of work in that space. Just tell me about the one that you're working on specifically where there's a lot of young girls that are found pregnant. And you did quite a lot of work there. Please tell me about that journey for you.
So for me, that's natural progression. I know what it's like to be a young person taken advantage by older men. This is the conversation we are not having about how 14, 16-year-olds are sleeping with older men because of things, because of your weave, because of your phone, because of all of those things. We're not having those conversations and how those little girls ultimately end up pregnant, how the principals and the teachers are having sex with their learners and children are ending up pregnant. And nobody knows how these children are getting pregnant. The Department of Health comes with these scary numbers of the number of pregnant children, including 10-year-olds that are getting pregnant. And there's a big outcry in the country. Everybody is like bewildered by this pregnancy. And I'm like, excuse me, who's having sex with children? Because it's not a 10-year-old that's impregnating a 10-year-old. There must be a grown person who's doing this. And that speaks to statutory rape in the country. We are not talking about the age of consent. In actual fact, let's just be honest. We don't understand consent in this country. We don't understand that somebody must consent to sex. I'm not even talking at the level of just children. The fact that we are known as a rape capital stems from the fact that we don't know who yes. Now, when we don't even know what consent is, how does a 12-year-old consent to sex when the right age of consent is above 16? So why do we have children that are under 16 years of age being pregnant, and that's not called statutory rape in essence? Because that's exactly what it is. So I then decided that I was going to run a campaign to make the pregnancies of teens and particularly children a notifiable incident. What that means is that if you see a 10-year-old that is pregnant, if a 10-year-old presents pregnant in hospital, there must be a form that then is filled up so that an investigation is triggered, so that, social services is triggered, so that support systems are triggered. Can you imagine being pregnant at 12? What is happening with your mental state when you are 12? Where is the psychological support for a 12-year-old who's going to be a mom? But also, grant, I don't know how much it is, 400, whatever?
350.
Right. You have your own 450 that needs to buy you food. Now you're going to be getting 450. Who's signing for the 450? You or your mother? What are the sort of basic preps for a 12-year-old who's going to be pregnant? And what happens to not just her mental health, her physical health, because she is just nowhere ready to being, pregnant. So what are the sort of support mechanisms available for this child? But also, who the hell is the father? And can we find that person and make sure that they're locked up? Because we are not triggering, we don't even have the stats around statutory rape in this country. And yet our children are getting raped and they're becoming pregnant. And that's why I ran the campaign.
How far are you in terms of achieving that goal? Like, what are the milestones since you started that campaign?
So I've had several meetings with the Department of Health, and I'm still fighting them because they are wanting to push it to other departments. Oh, no, it's not us. Go to social services. Social services must provide the psychological support. And I'm like, no, but every child is going to present to a hospital. If they don't present to a hospital, in the corner somewhere. And traditional healers fall within the ambit of the Department of Health. So when the doula, which is the traditional midwife, is helping this child give birth, they have a legal obligation. they should have a legal obligation to also fill in that form and notify authorities that I am now helping a 10-year-old either have an abortion or to deliver that child. So I want to hold the Department of Health through the nurses and the doctors, as well as traditional healers, accountable for helping children give birth.
And also, you just want it to be in record that this person presented themselves as pregnant and they are too young, they're minor to be in this kind of a state.
Yeah.
So we are just keeping record of this incident, and then
I just want to know who the father is so that we can get the father arrested.
That's it.
It's so important because if we don't punish statutory rape, we will continue having pregnant children. We know for a fact that it is the poor young Black child who is being taken advantage of in the poor settlements that we have. We can't ignore the socioeconomic status of Black women in this country that presents themselves and their children and puts them in a place where they are they're fodder for those who abuse them because they have economic power. So we also need to deal with that. It doesn't happen in isolation. The abuse and rape of women. And I mean, when I said to you, even as a child, I knew living in the township says, the likelihood. And this is the conversation we need to have. 99.9% of Black women will get raped or beaten at least once in a lifetime. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah. I think this is a very important activism that you're really pushing because it's even normalized on social media. I see this a lot quite on social media where we see really young girls who are vulnerable, gullible, who are not like fully developed in their mental state, really hanging out with these really old guys that buy them alcohol and that do all of these things for them. And it's become so normalized. It's like it's a normal thing.
Because we're not punishing them. We need to have these men thrown in jail. It's that simple. And we are not doing that. We are not collecting the stats of statutory rape in this country. We know that we are called a rape capital, but we also that society that doesn't protect its young, particularly young Black children.
Now, this activism that we just spoke about is what I could find myself, but I know you're probably working on a whole lot of things. What other things are you involved with besides what we had just conversed about now?
So, in the work that I'm currently doing, I'm also an Indigenous knowledge activist. I'm also in the biotech space. And what that means is that we're looking to find green gold. And green gold is South Africa is the 4th most diverse country in the world. With that, we have amazing plants. Meaning that we could use our plants to unearth what I call a green gold. We can use our plants, have these extractions, make biocosmetics or biomedicine. We know that the world is moving towards more natural medicines. And South Africa could actually lead that path. I've worked with the CSIR in developing the technology behind my product range. It's an award-winning, scientifically validated product. So what we did is that we found a unique protein that had never been used in cosmetics before, and we used it to develop what we call the ethnic hair hydration technology. And this technology is the technology that is behind our hair care product. But so we have a hair care product, but we also have a bath and body range. And those are also based on African indigenous ingredients that we then extract and use the extracts thereof. Now, what's important with that is that we work with rural women who become our growers. And then we go and collect and then we process in a lab and do the extracts, which are then used in our formulations.
I like how you are actually taking this value chain all the way back to the women in the villages, because I mean sometimes people that create products just look at outsourcing. The fact that you go all the way to have people grow that for you, part of your community. I really love that. I don't know. I really love that. I was just having a conversation with you downstairs to say, hey, I've got serious hair problems. And you literally said, that's the first thing I notice when I see you. Because you see hair when you look at a person.
I do.
Because you are, I would say, a hair scientist.
Yeah, I love hair.
Tell me about your journey as a hair scientist. How did you even get into that industry? Because like you are doing literally everything under the sun at this point.
Hey, Shwena. So it's quite interesting how I got into it because, like I said, we first developed the ethnic hair hydration technology. I worked with the CSIR in developing the technology. I then opened initially it was a hair salon. And we were just like, oh, no, we just want to do natural hair. But as I was doing this, I realized that the biggest problem was not actually the hair. The biggest problem was the scalp. We have a lot more scalp problems than we do, hair problems. And there's a focus on the hair. And once the hair has grown out, there's very little you can do in terms of the actual structure of the hair. So hair is skin deep. So if you have not solved the problems of the formation of the hair at the level underneath the dermis, you are really just, playing. But also if you are not dealing with the skin conditions that happen in the scalp, you are having problems. So some hair loss is as a result of scalp conditions, scalp infections, bacterial infections. Sometimes it's a stomach bug, H. pylobacteria. So H. pylori is one of the viruses. It's actually a bacteria in your stomach, and it does cause hair loss. And a lot of the times it's misdiagnosed. So there's a number of reasons why people have hair loss. But in essence, when I first started, I was doing hair, and then I started noticing that people had scalp problems. And so we started doing the research around what were those problems and could we find solutions within nature? Because like I said, we in the biotech space, we would then look for herbal solutions to help with that. And that's how it all started. And we eventually morphed into a hair clinic later. But even with that, we are still in this space where the products that we use are designed to work with your body in the way that, your body was designed to work. So we don't impose things on your body. We work with your body. We help you. So hair is, when I said it's skin deep, you need nutrients, you need proteins, you need all kinds of things to be able to grow hair. So we then work with you to say, what are the sort of nutrients you need to be able to do that? How do we help with your scalp health so that we are able to create the right environment for you to be able to grow hair? And that's basically where.
Amazing. I'm definitely your next client.
Awesome.
With all this activism work that you do, what have you seen change, or what is the impact that you've seen yourself contribute to in our society?
So like I said, my life is shaped by my own experiences. And as a young person, I think I first started off working Go Township AIDS Project. I think I was around 10, 11 when I started, my work as an activist. We were driving HIV/AIDS education then. And then over time, I guess I joined the LGBTIQ movement. We saw the South African government give members of the LGBTIQ the right to get married. That was early 2000s. I was involved in that struggle. And like I said, in 2010, we went and we slept outside Parliament. And with that, we kickstart the process of having what is now called the Hate Crimes Bill, because then we were just talking about hate crimes, but it wasn't like a specific law, discriminatory laws. So we slept in Parliament, I think, for 3 days. And after that, Parliament announced that they were going to have a task team. And that's when, I think a few weeks ago, the president signed into law the Hate Crimes Bill. And I know that, again, I think it was when we had the 24 demands. We organized women to go to different parts of the country. And here in Gauteng, we went to Pretoria. And in Pretoria, we had our protest. Now, we asked specifically for the president to come and address us. And the president didn't come. And I then walked up all the way to Union Buildings. And I sat there and I was like, Reto Emela, president. And obviously, that created interest, and a few more women came. 6 o'clock came, Rebatla, president is not coming. 7 o'clock, the president not coming. Khutla, the police. Around, I think, 9, 10, the police were getting violent. We got beat up that day. The police beat us up whilst we were waiting for the president. There's videos of me getting clapped around. I think News 24 and ENCA have those videos. And we were being beat by police that at some point they literally picked me up, like a sack of potatoes and threw me there. And I was like, why are you hitting us? And actually nothing happened with those police, just by the way. We were told that there was no evidence of us being beaten up. But I mean, it's still, if you go onto YouTube, that stuff is still there. That talks about the brutality of the South African system in itself, but also the resilience that is within women to try and fight this thing. Because at the end of that, yes, we got beaten up, but today we have what we call the NSP on gender-based violence. So activism does yield results. To be a country of outrage is problematic. More South Africa, more. We do things where something comes up, we talk about rape stats, and then we go on Twitter, we make a big noise about it, but nothing actually happens. I believe that we must physically get involved with doing things. I did say that I am the former deputy president of ASAPO. I am inspired very much by the likes of Stephen Bantu Biko, the people who died for what they believe in. If you don't act towards changing the things that you're uncomfortable with, then you have to accept the status quo, which is where we find ourselves today. We accepted the 1994 settlement, and this is where we find ourselves today, what I call 1994 2.0, because we have said it's okay. We have allowed the status quo to remain. Our activism is watered down. We think sending statements, we think sending, speaking on radio and TV is going to change our lives. It is not. We need to go to the grounds and activate our people and let them know that if you want change, you have to physically do things. We go into communities when we talk about how filthy our communities are. What are we doing about it? Are we going in there and picking up the papers? Are we going in there and reminding people that poverty was brought to us? We are not even having that conversation. That, when the settlers came into South Africa, what was the bottom of the African continent, we didn't have poverty. So why...
We had rich lands. We were making our own food.
So why are we hungry?
Yeah.
Why are we hungry? Why do we have malnutritioned people? Why are we allowing ourselves to be dependent on a capitalist system that is intent to keep us and lock us out? And what are we doing about that? Because we can sit here and complain about our lot, or we can actually do something about it. The youth of 1976 did something. They didn't post, they didn't write letters to the state, which is what we do. We go onto Twitter and we say, Cyril, you are this, you are that. We talk about how bad the status quo is. But what are we actually doing? What are young people doing? What are the elders doing? What is my generation? What is the legacy of my generation?
I think we have it right by being able to bring awareness on something, but what we are missing is the action. Because yes, we do the retweets, we bring the awareness to a matter, but it only trends for a couple of days, and then days later there's something else, and then we just move on from what we were trying to,
Yeah,
bring
so
up.
it's good to talk about awareness, but we are not aware of the status of women in this country, for instance. We are not aware of the gender-based violence. I mean, geez, this country talks about gender-based violence, but what are we actually doing about it? Even now, yes, I do talk of the NSP, but the truth of the matter is that it is like the Constitution, just a document. If we don't actually hold the state accountable to be able to do something about gender-based violence in this country. It will remain just that. So for me, and I think you called me an actionist, that's exactly it, is that we physically need to get our hands dirty and take activism to the streets, do something. Because even now, when I talk about the fact that we are hungry, my entrepreneurship is driven by exactly that understanding that we can't have rural communities say that they are hungry when, in fact, in their backyard, they have medicines that the world could very well need. So why are we not growing these medicines and processing them and selling them to the international community? Why are we not the bread basket of the world? I had a conversation not so long ago about someone, and we were talking about Plan 2063, which is Africa Plan 2063. And I'm like, if you read this document, it sounds pretty much like a document that was written by a Westerner. Right? It talks about going back and digging for more gold. It talks about and digging out diamonds, etc. When does the raping of Mother Earth stop? When does it stop? Why are we thinking like the colonizers, thinking that we must go and dig out, things that are under the earth when we don't even know what they're there for? None of us know what diamond is in the earth doing. But we are there digging it out. What is the social and physical impact on earth of us continuously raping the earth in the manner that we are? We are Africans. We are supposed to be kinder to the environment. We need to live with Mother Nature because Mother has given us all that we need. If we need food, there's enough food on earth for us to live. What are we doing? Why are we hurting Mother Earth so much? Why are we doing that? What's the value?
It's the capitalism and consumerism, because just like what's happening in Congo right now.
Right.
Yeah.
But nobody's having that conversation. We talk about how we want to have clean energy. Clean energy for who? When it is Black children that are digging out these minerals so that white children can have a comfortable life. Whose future are we protecting when it is Black children that must go and be enslaved in order to dig out these minerals that are required for your iPhone? We're not even having that conversation. And these are things that I'm saying Mother has provided enough in terms of our biodiversity. We could actually, be a food basket for the entire world. We could produce the food that the world needs. We could produce the medicines that the food needs and that the world needs, and ensure that rural communities are sustainable. And I'm not saying people must live in poverty, and I'm not saying people must extract themselves from a global economy. I'm saying we can enter the global economy with us being cognizant of the fact that these children, our children, need to inherit the earth, and therefore we need to be a lot gentler with how we do things.
You are raising a daughter,
right?
And given the experiences that you have in life, at her tender ages, what are some of the things that you would say to her that you really needed to emphasize to sort of ready her for the community that we live in?
So that's a very interesting one. My partner is the physical mom, the biological mom to our daughter. I've only known my daughter for the last 6 years. And I remember we have quite a close bond. It's a very interesting thing that my daughter and I are so close. It was almost as though God made sure she was made so that I could meet her at some point in my life. And by the way, she's not my biological daughter, but we have the same eye prescription. I don't know how that happens, but literally to the last degree, her and I have the same eye prescription. But story for another day. So a few months ago, it was actually last year around this time, I went to Vipassana. And Vipassana is a meditation center in Cape Town. It's a 10-day no speak. So you don't speak for 10 days. You don't have access to your phone. It's meditation for an entire 10 days. And when day 8 happened, And I was thinking about my life, and I realized that, okay, so it has something to do with death. The lesson for that day has something to do with dying. And the teacher says, Vipassana meditation is the art of dying. I'm like, hey, well, hold on a second. I'm not here to die. Me, I'm here to live, to learn how to live this life. And when I went to sleep that day, I cried so much. I was like, I can't die. I can't die anytime soon because I have not prepared my daughter for this life. Like, I just have not taught her enough. She is very gentle. She is the gentlest, most loving, the kindest human ever. And I felt as though she was just not ready for this life because unlike me, who was raised, with so much violence and having to be strong, I've made sure that my daughter is protected the last 6 years that she's been in my life. Literally, she doesn't leave my side, which is also one of the reasons why I never had a child, because I always thought, oh my God, I would have to have bodyguards for this child. Like, the idea of leaving my child out and the street scares the living daylights out of me still. So I have tried to make sure that my child can defend herself physically. I have mentally prepared my child. My child can have how she can defend her own sexuality and the reasons why she chooses to make the kind of sexual decisions she has made for herself. So I'm not going to say what they are, but she can comfortably defend them without my being there. And I think it's important to have those conversations with your child, but also the kind of grounding as an African, the kind of respect for others and ubuntu and humility and compassion. Those are things that I have tried to further instill in her, because I have to say, I look at my partner and I look at how she has raised her. And I see how I would have raised her in the same old ways of Ubuntu and compassion and respect. So my partner and I sort of share the same value systems. And that is so, so critical to understand who you are seeing in life. And I've said that to her. If you and your person have a different value system, that relationship is not going anywhere. So, and you cannot then compromise your values to try and to fit into someone else's life, because that is going to make you miserable. So it's important that your values are aligned to whoever you are trying to date, because we talk about, I will say I don't have a capitalist outlook on life. I look at what brands I buy. We are wearing Kosingosi namhlanje, and it's important that we talk about localization. We talk about how we spend our money with local brands, because that is absolutely critical. So I do that with my daughter, and I'm like, be conscious of where you spend your money and how you spend your money. Your politics must be reflected in your actions. So you can't walk left and talk right, or talk right and walk left. Your politics must be reflected in how you live your life and the kind of decisions that you make. I talk about myself being an African, an indigenous knowledge activist. I talk about my Africanness, and therefore everything that I do is centered around those very beliefs and, what I buy, what I support. And so I've tried to do that with her.
Beautiful. I would have loved to also be raised in that kind of a setting, because it really sets you up for this kind of community that we are living in. And I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
So if you were to serve yourself to a large crowd of people, what would you have on that plate and why?
I would serve a African fruit pavlova with granadilla syrup.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Because fruits are nourishing. They are attractive in terms of color, and they're rare and they're unique. And the pavlova is not ours, and that's exactly it, is that we have this foreign influence that does make things a little bit sweeter and a little bit more interesting. and the granadilla is very sweet and chewy and nutty. So it's a travel. It's a discovery. And I think I am exactly that. I'm a discovery. There's just so many corners in Kekeletso that are yet to be discovered by the world and myself.
I like that. And if you were to be a cocktail or any drink of choice, what would you be?
I would probably be a virgin mojito.
Nice.
Yeah, refreshing, and completely alcohol-free, because I think we're a drunk society. We live in the clouds, and I think we need to sober up and not see the world with tinted lenses. We need to see the world for what it is, accept it, then do something about it.
100%. Now, what do you do in your downtime? Like, what do you do to have fun or to just say, I just want to relax? This is what I do when I'm
a busy brain. I'm an information junkie. I can't stop getting information, so I read. And if I'm on the phone, I'm reading. So that's what I do. I'm an information junkie, so I just...
But it makes sense. I wouldn't expect anything less.
I wish it was different. I used to dance when I was younger, but I don't do that anymore. So I do wish that I was doing something different. But yeah, this is what I do now. I just read, I write.
I'm going to challenge you to go back to dancing. Whatever, what genre were you in when you were dancing?
So I used to do Latin American and ballroom.
Yeah, why not go back to that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to challenge you to go back to that love that you used to have for dancing.
That's awesome.
And then maybe you just,
tried Kizomba at some point, but I just, I think I left it halfway. But
yeah, I think you should go back to that. But thank you so much for this conversation that me and you had today. It was... Listen, I'm mind blown. I'm literally going to be your biggest follower, if I may say.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much. Continue doing your work. It's not going to go unnoticed. The more hard work we put in and the more we move in the right directions, the right things are going to happen. And someone out there really need people like you in their lives.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. And I will see you again in the next one. Thank you. Bye.